All right, we're staying with the situation in Ondo State, where the plan to impeach the Deputy Governor, Lucky Aiyedatiwa, has been initiated by the State House of Assembly. Let's now bring in a legal practitioner, Femi Emodamuri, to talk more about the legal framework for impeachment. Good to have you join us.
Thank you very much. It's a privilege to you.
So in that report we just took by our correspondent, he talked about, the constitutional requirement for the impeachment of any public official, elected public official. And I just wanted to ask you, what has happened to that legal framework over the years?
Well, I think Muradio has captured beautifully, in my opinion, the legal framework, that is the procedures for the removal, you call it impeachment, of elected public officials. In this context, we talk about the president and the vice president, and the procedure is governed by Section 143, subsection 1 to 11 of the Constitution. And in the case of the governor or deputy governor, the procedure is outlined in Section 188, subsection 1 to 11 of the Constitution. Let me answer the concluding part of your question first before we go into that procedure. What has happened to impeachment over the years? I've had privilege to write opinion, legal opinion on some of the impeachment procedures in the past in this country. And my conclusion is that most of the impeachments were aborted or failed, not because the holder of the office was not guilty or were not guilty of the allegations levied against them, but because the procedures were totally ignored. The constitutional provisions were hastily, petition and in some cases treated with disdain. Having said that, just let us quickly go, because of time, to the procedure. Now, in the case of the removal of a governor or a deputy governor, you have the procedure stated in Section 188, subsection 1 to 11, like I stated. Section 188, subsection 1 says that, the holder of the office of a governor or deputy governor could be removed from office upon a notice of allegation of gross misconduct, served on him by the procedures we are going to outline. Let's first and foremost define that big word, gross misconduct. What is gross misconduct? The definition of gross misconduct is contained in Section 188, subsection 11 in this context, and it is defined as misconduct amounting to a grave violation of the provisions of the Constitution, or such misconduct as amounts, in the opinion of the State House of Assembly, to a gross misconduct. Now, grave violation of the provision of the Constitution.
And that very issue of gross misconduct is what a lot of Nigerians talk about. It looks like anybody can whip up any allegation and say it is gross misconduct because it's not clearly defined. But I also wanted to ask you, just a minute, we see what happened in Zamfara State, or we saw what happened in Zamfara State, where the deputy governor was reinstalled by the court after the expiration of that tenure. What can be done to ensure that justice is served within the administration, that is seeking to impeach any public official?
Justice will only be served if the constitutional procedures are meticulously, strictly, fairly, equitably followed. And that's what we're talking about, the procedure. We have talked about what amounts to gross misconduct. The truth, whether we like it or not, is that by virtue of the Supreme Court interpretation of that phrase, gross misconduct, largely is in the absolute discretion or power of the State House of Assembly to determine what amounts to gross misconduct. I mean, the Supreme Court clearly stated that in the case of AG of the Federation against Atiku Abubakar, that was in 2007, that was reported in Part 1041 of the Nigeria Weekly Law Report. It was a very, very, very detailed judgment. There is no doubt that today, what amounts to gross misconduct is in the absolute discretion of either the National Assembly, in the case of the President or Vice President, or the State House of Assembly, in the case of the governor or deputy governor. We may not like it, but that is the Supreme Court interpretation.
Right.
That was repeated in the case of Inakoju against Adeleke, that is the popular Ladoja case. So the State House of Assembly has a wide discretion. But what are the procedures? Ayodele Morakinyo has effectively outlined those procedures. Yeah. It must be strictly followed. The holder of the office must be given right to fair hearing. If that is properly followed and there is no hasty process, the provision of Section 188 subsection 10 is that no court has the power to interfere. So most often in the past, they do not meticulously follow the process. And one big problem with previous impeachment in most cases is that they even go outside the State House of Assembly chamber to go and conduct impeachment proceedings. That would be null and void. So it's all about procedural lapses in most cases.
All right. We'll see how this plays out. Quite an interesting development. Thank you so much for talking to us, legal practitioner.
And thank you for the privilege.
Emodamori.